Donny, throughout this journey, like as you said, I mean, it started in a parking lot, and now you're doing one-on-ones that are extended stays in the field. What were some of the do you have a moment that you look back in a survival situation that was like your darkest moment? And that could be physical or mental, because I'm sure as you're staying in a cave for 30 days, like an idle mind, you start to come up with some interesting things. So are there any moments where you throughout your journey had like an oh shit moment of like that you look back on? And I'm sure the learning, at least in my life, like the learning always is greatest from those moments, but when you're in those moments, it can be a bit hairy. So any that come to mind as like a dark moment?
Absolutely. So not this past summer, but the summer, and this is 2 years ago. Um, a buddy of mine runs the Laughing Coyote Project, which does a lot of homesteading and a lot of homeschool groups. So he had a group of teens that he was going to bring out, and I had spent a lot of time on the western side of Colorado, out in the deserts. And he was like, "Do you know where there's water? We need absolutely, plenty of water." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's this one canyon. It's about 18, 19 miles long, and it's got all sorts of twists and turns. Um, I know there's water at the base because how I've gotten to it before, I would swim across the Colorado River, on like a makeshift little, reed raft, and then walk into the canyon and spend some time there." But he's like, "We can't do that with these kids. So can we drop down into the canyon and eventually make our way?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I went out there to scout it for him and just to ensure that there was water. And you have to kind of shimmy down all this slick rock and crawl through a couple holes, and it's kind of sketchy, but it's doable. And kind of one of those properties of water is it always seeks the naturally lowest point, and it will also pool and collect. It will sit in puddles, it will sit in these little slick rock basins, and you can find water. So eventually I dropped down to this canyon, and me knowing, having been there, I'm like, I'll just bring one water bottle. Get down to this canyon, and right where the kind of the head of it is, it's completely dry. So I'm like, all right, fundamentals water, let's keep walking. So I keep walking down this canyon, and eventually I get all the way down, probably close to the Colorado River, where there's kind of a big jump and you could see it. And I'm like, God, I have not had anything to drink for probably the past 10 miles. And I'm thinking, okay, this is bad. This is really bad, but you know what you need to do. You can dig for it. You could go to the Colorado River, but it's a really hard down climb. Um, Maybe the best option is turn around and walk back. So you're in a canyon, you're catching pockets of shade. So I'm kind of resting in shade, trying to cool my body. At a certain point, I'm kind of like walking naked and then not walking naked because there's, tons of insects. And then any of that sweat, I'm just wanting air to hit me. But eventually, once I get close to the top, I'm done sweating and I got to climb up this slick rock. Once I peaked out at the very top, I started to black out. I started to get that tunnel vision. And I don't know if it was a little bit of an elevation change or that I knew I was close to my truck and it was okay to die then. But I got to the top and I started getting that tunnel vision. And I, had to go down to a knee. I mean, we've all been to that point where you're like dry heaving, you've got nothing in you, you're no longer sweating. And I'm like, God, this is bad. So I take a little breather and I'm like, what you have to do, and I think I had 2 miles to go, is you have to move from shade to shade. Any plant that gives you a little bit of shade, a piece of juniper or anything, you go from shade to shade and you just get it done. And I did that for probably like 3 hours. And eventually I got to my truck, drank the remnants of like a Gatorade or something, threw it up. But that entire way from shade to shade, I literally thought, I'm going down. I'm going down as heat stroke, heat casualty. This could be the worst way to possibly go, completely dehydrated. And at a certain point, you start kind of getting these like delusional thoughts like, should I put all my clothes on and protect myself from the sun? No, I should just get from shade to shade because that's going to be cool. And like, I'm not peeing. It was getting to the point where I honestly thought, man, this is it. This is it right here. And it was my own negligence of thinking there's going to be water down here. There was no water. Got to my truck, drank that Gatorade, threw it up, and then eventually just kind of turned the truck on and just stayed in the AC. And sometimes in our vehicles, you rummage around and there's an old half drunk water bottle. And I'm like, all right, just sip it, just sip it. You had to go back to all those fundamentals of like slow rehydration. And then once the temperatures dropped at night, it was far better. I decided to drive myself out, actually go to like, I think it was local grocery store, get some like Pedialyte, but I was in bad shape, like genuinely bad shape. And man, I think I told Missy, I was like, I think I almost died again this weekend scouting for this stuff. But that's on the survival side. But even in personal life, when I was 37, I had a massive heart attack. And the heart attack wasn't because I drank excessively or smoked or did anything wrong. I mean, I was 6 months into a training cycle for a super jungle ultra marathon down in Peru, and it was just genetics. And typically, you don't have heart attacks at 37. My blood is just a little bit more stickier than most, and that encompassed with just how I was living my life ultimately kept me alive. But it is once I had that heart attack and I quickly realized, for a lot of folks, I don't mind being your example. I'm 6'3", I'm 240 pounds, I'm active, I do a lot of things to stay healthy. If it can happen to me with all these things that I do to maintain health, it can happen to you who smokes 2 packs a day and only eats McDonald's. Um, I'll be your example. Feel free to get yourself in shape. And at that point is when I went on to social media. That was in 2017. And the idea was not to discuss my personal beliefs, political, ideological, all these different things, but was to give people kind of, again, that rewilding, that kind of feral kind of lifestyle, where that lifestyle kept me alive up into that heart attack, and it's going to keep me going forward. So it was really the best day and the worst day. Having two young sons at that time, it's kind of like, oh shit, I could have left them fatherless, and all the things I wanted to share with them and teach them as they got older would have been, it would have been zero. It would have been nothing. And I think that lit a fire under me to maintain my personal health, because as fathers, fiancés, brothers and stuff, and especially in the military, we always focus on everybody else but ourselves. And it was the first time in a real long time, instead of pointing the finger out at everybody, hey, I'll help you out, I'll take care of you, I finally pointed it at me and said, now you really have to consider everything you do going forward. That's your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your primal well-being. I have a tattoo on my finger of 4 line dots: mental, physical, emotional, and primal well-being. And it is a reminder to keep those four things aligned at all times. And if one of them starts to get out of whack, I need to bring it in. So if I haven't been out in the bush because I've been going to parent teacher conferences and had to assist, coaching a lacrosse game, one, I have to shower first. That's the first rule, as I've been told. And two, I need to bring those things back into alignment. And it, it it's something I just live by. Like, my primal well-being is something that Missy knows, that if I've been in the house and I'm doing things with my kids, like, you need to get out there, you need to get your feet dirty, you need to go drink some water. Because the other important facet of this is, as a father, like, I won't sacrifice things for my kids, and that's more importantly, I'm not gonna sacrifice myself for them. So I'm a dad first, and with that, to be the best dad, you have to be fit. I have to keep those things aligned, and it really keeps me, on track going forward. It's good day, bad day. And even when that bad day happened, I said, if people present me with no value, they're gone. I cut out relationships, people that I had no value with, and they might not have seen a value in me. I'm like, we're done. Like, there's no need for this if that was causing us stress. I learned to sleep more. I learned to take those moments and reflect on the beauty of nature, the beauty of my kids, something very interesting that could be happening. I'm not a big artist guy, but if there's something really interesting in an art form, I should take a second and enjoy it. Even if it hits me in one unique way, awesome, move on. Understanding that if somebody cuts me off in traffic, as much as I would love to chase them down and be like, you SOB, but maybe their wife is pregnant. Maybe there's an emergency. There could be something else going on, and I shouldn't focus on the negative aspect and how it impacted me, but maybe just related to them. So it's really focusing on controlling my emotions, my outlooks, focusing on me. And it's one of those things I convey to a lot of men is, we are providers, we are givers, but we also have to provide for ourselves and give to ourselves, because if we don't, I mean, 10,000 men die every year from stupidity. And I was going to be one of those, statistics, if you will. So, you
Well,
know.
I love that, and I think I've noticed a trend. What you're describing is what I personally like. I coined for myself of state maintenance, meaning like we all know a state where we felt our best, and I think if you get really clear on how you got to that state, it's usually very simple, and that's what I love about yours. Not it's actually not simple because we don't. I don't think we do a great job of educating like our young and even adults on how to maintain it or maintain it. But like you said, we've gotten really good at reducing things down to like to negate some of those, the big ones being like emotional, even like the spiritual side of things. Like if any one of those pillars are out of balance, your state is going to be effective. But what, as a culture now, what do? We run for a supplement. We run for like these things that we can add in when actually a lot of times it's actually removing those and then reconnecting community, relationship, whatever spiritual totem you have for yourself. Like it's cool because what you said is a trend between what I like, some people we've had on here, Brian Johnson, Dr. J Tita, like a
Yeah,
lot of individuals who have their own system. Everyone's saying the same thing. They put their own different kind of unique twist on it, but it truly is just maintaining these innate systems that make us human. But it's wild because it, for a lot of individuals, it seems so foreign because we've been taught to like, hey, swallow your emotion, like you said,
yeah,
as males, sacrifice yourself, and like it that can work in the short term, but then you can really start to delayer. Even when you said about a heart attack and then disease, like dis-ease will settle in when you one of those pillars is out of balance, and like
absolutely.
and it's not a matter of having more. It's actually usually like you said, getting outside for some individuals, and for each individual it varies a little bit, but really just respect and want to honor that you have that code for yourself, because I think to me that's an integrated human, is when you've through experience, through ground truth, developed your almost own code of conduct. And like I said, that can look different from person to
Yeah,
person, but then you really know how to maintain your state, which then allows you to show up best for your children, your fiance, your community. And then what you said is important too. When you have your own code of conduct, it's very clear when somebody shouldn't is it does not resonate with that code of conduct. And then people who are constantly find themselves in toxic relationships, toxic friendships, it's like I don't think you have a real code of conduct, because when you do, that shit is so obvious to you that right away it's almost like a repellent. Like nope, like
yeah,
this is, and it's not done in a mean way. It's just like, hey,
sure.
we don't, the energy just isn't there. So yeah, really
Yeah,
really just want to call out that I really appreciate you having that code, because I think we need more of that.
yeah. I think a lot of men, they do have that. I mean, they all go back to the time, man, I was at my best when I was 25, or when I was in high school, or even after college. It's like, well, you can still get there. You can still be in that physical best, but how was your mental? How was your emotional? Like it's just keeping all of it aligned. And I think it's an important facet for men to really understand and kind of self-reflect on. It's kind of like a cognitive behavior therapy. It's kind of like, I know what triggers me. Am I going to let it cognitively? I can see it, I can accept it, but now I'm going to block it out. And it goes into a lot of different dimensions. And it's pretty powerful for men of all ages, especially young, learning at a younger age how to establish that foundation and kind of allowing it to kind of help build them and shape them as they go forward.